last week is even while the computer is telling me that we're preparing to live stream the meeting, we may actually be live streaming the meeting.
We may be.
Oh, we may be.
I just got advised
So
about the content of that meeting and being sent to YouTube, and I see
excellent.
the happening now in the event on Charmed. So,
And I have a message saying you are in fact live. Thank
all
you,
right.
invisible
Hey, everybody.
YouTube chat assistant. And hey, guess what? We're halfway. We're halfway there. Today we're going to talk about Charmed number
2020.
5, right?
2020. Yep.
2020. So for people who don't
Also known
know,
as, also known as the last one of the before times.
yes, the last one of the before times indeed. For people not keeping track of time in a chronological fashion anymore, COVID really hit in March of 2020, but
Yeah.
luckily we happened in January.
Yeah. So we had a fairly normal con. There was this
It
thing that was
actually felt
starting to be
very
talked
normal.
about in the news,
Yeah.
but it wasn't really a factor for 2020. Um, at least not in January 17th to
Yeah.
19th of 2020.
It wasn't even really being talked about a month later because the last thing that I did in 2020 was a science fiction convention over President's Day weekend in
Ah,
February. And then
I'm gonna say I seem to remember Valentine's Day being a little subdued, but then
mhm,
again, Neela was pretty much blowing up at the same time.
yeah. So yeah, March was when it got really fun.
March was when it got serious with lockdowns and whatnot. Yep.
But we're not going to talk about that until
No, because it hadn't happened
next
yet.
week. Next week, we'll talk about it a lot. But for
Yeah,
this week, we did have an exciting thing happen in 2020, which was the first year at a new hotel.
it
We
was.
moved from Baltimore to Annapolis to a hotel that had less historical significance, by which I mean no rotating restaurant floor. But
Nope, they never had the
some
Beatles stay there.
yeah. So, some bonus perks like better accessibility for people who need things like wheelchair
So much
ramps
better accessibility.
and
Oh my God.
elevators that actually run.
Yeah, for the most part.
There aren't as it's not as big of a hotel, right? So there aren't as
No, it's
many
not.
elevators, but we
Oh,
do
I
have the
mean, but because they're
pleasure.
spread out among multiple towers,
Yeah,
there's not like one elevator bank that has to serve everybody.
that's true.
And that helps, I think.
We
And
do have
because
the
we're relatively
pleasure.
low down, it's not as big a deal if you want to just take the stairs,
Yeah,
if you can. And once you get onto the main, uh, the main like classroom floor, ramp is right there, stairs are there, and an elevator is there. So you got all kinds of options,
yeah,
which,
we have the
yeah,
lovely option of having the two elevators that are literally right outside con space. So,
yes,
assuming you want to wait for an elevator, because like you said, the stairs are super conveniently located.
yep,
So, if you don't need the elevator, it's super easy to just duck around the corner and go up or down as you need
yes.
to.
And I mean,
No.
the a whole room, a whole corridor of rooms is right there on that first floor. So
Mhm. Now, to be
it
fair, I do want to acknowledge the fact that our hotel is on the older side. And so
is.
sometimes on the first day of con, we have to do things like get maintenance to come and actually attach the railing for the ramp back to the wall.
Yeah,
And I see that as us doing them a favor.
but they do it.
Yes, they do.
Unlike the other hotel, it was like, oh yeah, we'll get right on that. And maybe by the end of the weekend it was done, and maybe not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think
that was nice. You
we've
know,
lucked out with this particular hotel in a lot of ways.
well, I mean, I mean, the search for a hotel was difficult. Charmed has a particular need. We tend to use a lot of meeting room space
Mhm.
for the number of attendees that we have. Well, I should say had because the numbers have gone up a lot the last couple of
Yeah.
years. But, back in 2020, we were flirting with 300.
Hmm. Which felt
And
like a huge number.
yes, it felt massive. It was so huge that I was, a lot of us were nervous about having that many people there. And that was why we had Operation Hammond there.
Hmm.
Because like, oh wow, actually like trained EMT types, and most of them were also trained in social work, which
Yeah. For
turned out to
people who
actually be
don't
more of a.
know, what is Operation Hammond?
So Operation Hammond is a group of medical and mental health professionals who dedicate their time to going to events to take care of people that have emergencies, that have needs. And when we had, 300 people, that seemed like an awful lot of people to help keep assuming that nobody would ever have an incident.
Hmm.
And actually we started it the last year in Baltimore, and we continued it to 2020. Um, and they were, in fact, very useful in 2020, but more often from the hey, come talk to me and social and watching people or helping people that were having meltdowns.
Hmm.
They did a fair amount of that.
The
And I
infamous
was really,
hypno.
really glad we had them.
Yeah.
Um, we should
Were there a
probably
lot
still
of
have them, and we
meltdowns?
haven't been.
There
We
was a
lost
reason for
them. We
that, and I
lost
don't
track of
remember
them
what it
during the
was.
pandemic.
Ah, yeah.
And then the head of Operation Hammond died very suddenly
Oh no, I
in
didn't know that.
2020.
Okay.
And I mean, they're still around as an organization, and they still post things. But we kind of lost touch with them. We really, if we're going to keep having 400 plus people in
Hmm.
person, we really
Yeah.
need to reestablish that contact, I think,
Yeah.
as they did
I
not
will
cost
say,
a lot.
yeah, I know that one of the things that our dungeon coordinator, Lynx, is doing is trying to have as many volunteers that are actually first aid certified for things like CPR, which can only be a good thing.
Yes,
So, yeah.
it's a question of when we're going to need somebody like that, not if.
Hmm.
Somebody is going to fall down and break their ankle or do something weird and have a hard time explaining it. And
I can't, I don't think it was at Charmed. There was years ago, there was a con where somebody with an allergy to pineapple
ooh,
had barbecue sauce on some food that had been like some potluck food or something,
oh dear.
and had to be taken to the hospital. And that's the kind of thing that you, no matter how careful you are ahead of time, you can't predict
Right.
that someone's gonna encounter the one barbecue sauce on the market that has pineapple juice in it,
Well,
or whatnot.
yeah, and pineapple juice is not something that a lot of people normally think of as a dangerous allergenic.
Hmm.
But to a
Yeah.
small segment of the population, it's fucking lethal.
Well, yeah, it's one of this is a pet category, a pet topic of mine because because I do baked goods, I have to be careful about the difference between sensitivities and allergies
Yeah.
because true food allergies will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Sensitivities will screw you up and make you feel like they're killing you.
Uh,
And
they
I
may,
don't want people to have to deal with either of
yeah,
those things. But
yeah, but like, yeah, no, but pineapple we don't think of. Peanuts nowadays, pretty much everybody knows about, but they still tend not to
mhm,
think about it in terms of, oh, wait a minute, I can open my peanuts over here, and that person
yeah,
30 feet away might react. Yes, they
yeah,
might.
Yeah, a lot of people who have not had to deal, this is a hell of a tangent, a lot of people who have not had to deal with serious food allergies, they don't know that airborne is an issue. Peanuts, fungus is a big one. Um,
I mean, and I'll admit, I only know and really think about it because one of my wife's nephews has very severe food allergies.
mhm.
So it's like, oh shit. And as a result, when we would go up there for Thanksgiving, the menu was different to eliminate
Yeah.
all of those things.
hmm I do think it's interesting that we're going to talk about COVID next week, but we still have managed to talk about airborne,
Yes. Well,
problematic airborne elements.
we're easing our way into talking about COVID,
Yeah, that's what we're doing. So let's have some stats.
helping to cover the fact that Wiseguy doesn't have a lot of memory about 2020.
You have your specific reasons for not having memories of 2020 if you want to get into that. But I will say that a lot of people don't because it just sort of got sucked into the lockdown void.
Yes, and that does tend to make a lot of things just kind of because priorities suddenly shift in such a major life-changing way.
Mhm.
Anything that hadn't happened yet might as well have happened 10 years before.
I get Snapchat notifications for, this day 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and I'll be like, huh, look at that. It's the Annapolis Hotel.
Yes.
Who knew? 4 days or 4 years ago, not 5 years ago. But
Yeah,
anyway,
years ago, of course, we were not in the Annapolis Hotel. We were
yeah,
in any hotel.
let's have some stats.
That's next week's problem.
Yes. So for this week,
Stats.
stats 62 presenters,
Mhm.
which includes two or three people that only did evening events,
Yes.
88 classes, not counting Thursday. So with Thursday, that's another four. So
Mhm.
92. 13 evening events. I got this information off of the official program because this is the first year where we don't have a handy Daja made a spreadsheet of the schedule.
No. This week we had the spiral or the
Yes.
um shit, what is this called? Not GBC.
Uh, I would have called it Spiral Bound,
You know
which I
what?
think is what you were reaching for, but I don't know what the official name is.
No, that's probably a good enough. Yes, because we had actually hit so many pages in our program, we couldn't do the folded over and stapled program anymore.
Which I'm not gonna lie, for reasons we've talked about, I miss the hard copy program.
Yes.
But it's totally understandable. Like, we don't do it because it's a phone book.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't do it anymore. In fact, this was the last year we did it,
hmm
printed programs. And it was like the single most expensive item after the hotel was printing.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no.
I mean, it was bad. Uh, the spiral bound, we actually got a break on because the printer tried to staple it and said, "Look, we can't do this. We'll do the spiral bound. We won't charge you any extra because we didn't realize it was a problem." But of course, that wouldn't have applied to a later year either.
Yeah.
So that would have made it even more expensive. But we were well over, I want to say $2,000 in printing.
Holy cow.
Print, and the main thing of that was to print programs, but it also included things like um, liability waivers and whatnot that we have to have anyway.
hmm
But
Yeah.
the largest chunk of that was program.
Yeah. Now, we still every year have had, pardon me, a PDF version of a program for people if they
Yes,
want to have access to it, right?
absolutely we do. And we also publish it in EPUB
Oh,
format.
right on.
Um,
That I did not know.
find that more convenient.
Now I want them. I want them all. Okay, so chat, we have an actual chat comment, not a question. The
Okay,
comment is that spiral bound is actually the correct nomenclature for how that program is put
thank you.
together. Thank you, chat. That's
Thank you.
hilarious. And also, just realized that my phone was not turned off, but it is now. So, one of the interesting things about that program is, and this may have been done previously, but I did not notice, we actually have broken down some of the classes into tracks.
We had done that
So,
periodically before, but that year we were a little more dogmatic about it.
yeah,
We're,
so,
if this is what you're interested in, this is a track for you. And it was always
so,
suggestions. It was never a requirement.
well, and what is interesting to me about this one is that there are 88 classes, but the tracks that are pointed out are for beginner, intermediate, and advanced. I guess
Mhm.
study would be the word that we would use.
Yes.
So there are a lot of things that aren't broken down within these three tracks because they just don't apply.
Hmm.
But it's kind of nice to have here are classes we consider beginner classes available in that way because
Yes.
it's information that we get behind the scenes that is not always obvious, the way
And
Pretox
it's
does
something
the
that when a
schedule.
new person comes to a con and they're going, well, I mean, I'm brand new to this and there's 80 classes to look at, this
Yeah.
helps them to find a path, which is really what that's all about. It was never
Yeah.
intended to be a list of every single class and every possible itch that it scratches. It was a, hey, if you don't know anything else, here's a way to start. And they are deliberately, there were multiple presenters and multiple styles in
Mhm.
all of those lists because we wanted people to be able to experience a lot.
So I've been treating Thursday as separate.
Yes,
People who started attending Charmed in 2023 may not realize that previous to 2023, the Thursday classes were a completely separate event
they
to
were.
Charmed.
For a couple of years, we did the pre-con is a separate thing that you paid extra for.
Yeah.
And then was it 2023 or was it 2022?
It was the first year I was on ConCom,
Okay. I
2023.
just said, fuck it. Let's just call it
Yeah.
a 4 day convention. And if you don't happen to have that freedom to travel, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Now,
Because
what was
you have a just
interesting
weekend.
about this particular year, 2020, is that late in more recent years, the classes have been pretty reliably 4 hours long.
Hmm.
There was a 9 hour block available
Yep.
in 2020, and some of us, hi, it's me, some of us used as much of that time as possible. It ran from 1 to 10,
Hmm.
and that way we could have a dinner break in the middle. But back in those days, we didn't have enough people on Thursday to worry about things like socializing and evening events. And now that we have more people, we're allowing
Put
time in
more.
the evening for people to actually
Yes. Well,
hang
like
out with each other.
just about everything, we pay attention to what works and what doesn't work.
Mhm.
And, eventually we thought, 8 hours is a long time to spend with any one instructor for any particular thing.
Just
So we decided
gonna
let's
sip
go
my
4 hours.
tea.
If somebody wants to teach too, that's fine. But
I'm sipping my tea right now because I was allowed to turn in a 6 hour Thursday class.
I mean, doing the musical stuff takes time.
Yeah, demos take a whole lot longer
Mhm.
than you anticipate they're going to in your head, which maybe should be one of the top three things that we tell new presenters.
I do. I tell them to do demos, and I tell them that hands-on exercises are actually the place where your
Mhm.
time goes to die. and to be very, very careful how you structure those and to have help.
Yeah.
Um, your things are more like demos where you
Oh
have
yeah,
more control
definitely.
of the clock, but you still don't quite know what all questions are going to come out of it.
Well, and it's been hard to track because the first, like in 2020, I think I had 5 people, which makes it a whole lot easier. And I still didn't get everything in because it was the first time I tried to do it. Last year, I had, I don't know, mid 20s,
Mhm.
maybe. And I expect to have close to the same amount this year. Although I do want to say there's some serious competition happening on Thursday. Because one of the things I've done by wanting to have a 6 hour class is I am now scheduled against all four other Thursday classes to some extent. So,
Yeah, to
yeah,
some extent, yeah, and
yeah. I mean,
unavoidable.
you've got one on Thursday, something new.
I do because it's been 10 years and I have never taught a plain hypnosis 101 in the pre-con. And I wanted to teach one, damn it. I've always given that spot to somebody else. Uh, and even this year, there were other people that wanted to do them. And I'm like, oh,
I
I
want
figured
to say we got
everybody's going to be,
5 submissions for just straight Hypnosis 101 classes, 4 of which were all for Thursday.
yeah, yeah. And I admit, this one is special. I wanted to do this one. But I also recognize that I'm not the only one. So we're gonna
Oh,
have Beth, and she's actually gonna open the pre-con because hers is at
mhm.
noon.
Yeah,
Knowing that not everybody will be there by noon. Not everybody will be there Thursday at all, really.
yeah.
But okay, fine. So I will start mine. What was it? 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock?
4:30, I think.
4:30. Yeah, that's right. Um, and maybe I'll talk to 6 people.
Yeah. Or
Maybe
maybe you'll talk to 26 people.
it depends. I'll talk to anybody that comes in as long as I get at least one.
Yep. And we'll wave at you through the wall. And
You laugh. I've had one
yeah.
before. I had one
Oh,
before.
I
Back
the first
2020. I did my
yeah,
in 2020. I had one person for my pre-con class. So
in
that got
2020,
a lot of individual attention.
yeah, in 2020, the secret subject and Allison
Mhm.
were competing with both of us on Thursday,
Yep, and they won.
and they won. Not that it's really a competition, but I had people come into my class and sit down for a while and then go, "Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about right now." And I'm like, "Yes, if you're looking for the 101, you're gonna want to go next door. They're fine with you coming in."
Yes.
If I recall correctly, they did the 101.
Mhm.
You did how to present a class, I
Class
think.
development workshop. Yes.
Yeah, and Chew Toy did.
Kinesthetic
Oh,
hypnosis.
yeah. I'd like to see Chew Toy come back.
I would love to see you two come back.
If you're watching this, Chew Toy, come back.
Come back.
There's a whole list of people I'd like to see come back. I will say, I've noticed a couple people join the server recently
Oh
that
yeah.
are familiar names from the past. So I apologize for shouting you out on YouTube, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Remember Woland and Margarita who did the Speakeasy?
They were the first ones and they did it beautifully.
Yeah, they are apparently attending.
Yay!
So, huzzah! We have a chat question. This is exciting.
The
All
first,
right, this is a good question. For the 4:30 to 8:30 classes, is there a dinner break incorporated into that time?
that is entirely up to the instructor. We did not mandate that they have to because 4 hours is, it's not like an 8 hour class where you absolutely have to break. Um, some of them might, some of them might not. I know that I'm not planning to because I figure if we get out at 8:30, that's a reasonable time to still be able to get in or anywhere you want.
Yeah.
Somebody else might have different math.
Yeah, I will say mine, I want to say we started me at 1, I think.
I think that's right.
And my 6 hour long block includes an hour for dinner.
Yes.
Unless people don't want to take an entire hour for dinner, in which case we will fill that space with more demos.
Yes. Here we go. Yes, you start at 1 p.m.
Okay. So yeah, eat your lunch
And yeah, I mean, 6
or hang
o'clock,
out in other people's
I always
classes.
need a break.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so something that's not on the schedule this year, but was on the schedule in 2020, and as you mentioned, pre-turning on the live stream, could maybe end up on the schedule, is Kinky Human Tricks.
Yes.
And I was going to ask you to talk about Kinky Human Tricks even before we remembered that it was on the schedule in 2020. So I'm not asking you to tell us all about the class, but
Well,
I
you know,
think
it's
people would
not
enjoy
a
hearing
lot to
about
tell.
what kind of kinky human tricks. What qualifies as a kinky human trick?
So, Kinky Human Tricks is probably the oldest class, except for the 101, is probably the oldest class on my list. Um, and it was originally done to answer the question of, well, what do you do after the induction? Now, this was, of course, way back in the, 2009, 2010 timeframe when we didn't do nearly as much negotiation as we should,
Mhm.
and as we do now. So, nowadays when people come to me and say, yeah, I got him in hypnosis, now what? My answer is more like, well, what did you negotiate, dumbass? Uh,
The
Because if
dumbass is usually unvoiced.
you have a roadmap for what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Um, but in the beginning, we weren't as up on negotiation as we really should have been. So that was a more serious question. So I figured, well, let's just, and it's a very improvisational class. To this day, there is no outline for this class.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the outline is I take the big categories of stuff. So we talk about sensation play, we talk about arousing emotions, we talk about memory play, we talk about transformation play,
Mm-hmm.
we talk about orgasms, and then anything else I happen to think of at the time, because it's pure demo. It's demo, 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 demo.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually start very simply, and I'll grab an audience volunteer because I love to grab people that I've never worked with before. Uh, First off, because it keeps it interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, because even back then we had to do some negotiation, and that forced me to do it in front of the audience and gave them an
Mm-hmm.
example of how that's done. And frankly, it's more fun that way for me. And
Yeah.
when you see things like that done with somebody who's never done it before, there is no way you cannot sit there and think, "Wow, I could do that."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it's a different feel when somebody wants to show what you do with hypnosis, but they have their own demo bottom. Because then we'll yeah, okay, she can do that or he can do that, but I don't know if I can. So
Mm-hmm.
I love to use people from the audience. And that was my playground. So I would start with some kind of emotion and probably multiple emotions just to show a range because I don't want to just show one. Uh,
Hmm.
we would get into doing sensation play because that's different sensations. And then it kind of depends. If somebody was into bondage, we would do some hypno bondage. You know, Daja likes to tell the story of me doing hypno bondage with her, and putting imaginary duct tape in her hair.
In her hair? That's just
Yes,
mean.
hey, it was imaginary duct tape.
This is true. But
um, if somebody likes impact play, we would do a little hypno impact play. If somebody likes to be frozen, we would do freeze. Uh, if we found somebody that liked memory play, I would go ahead and do a little bit of light memory play, just really basic stuff like you forget your name for 5 seconds or whatever.
mhm.
Um, but I'd do that, and we'd work our way up to the climax, so to speak.
Har. I'm
And
actually
if somebody wanted
glad that,
to see that, then we would bring them up and we would do a hypnotic orgasm of some sort.
yeah.
A lot of the time, it was the 5 point palm exploding orgasm technique because I watched way too much Kill Bill.
Yeah. So you've actually reminded me, reminded's not the word. You've inspired me. Uh, there are very few things in the hypnosis community that you can look at and specifically say, this thing done this way was created by a specific person. Because a lot of things are logical things that
Oh,
you can
it's
infer from things that have happened before.
quite
But
independent of each other.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but that
That
particular
one is
trick.
mine. I mean,
And
other people do it since then. But yes, that particular name for that particular thing. Uh,
yeah, there's nothing, and they say this to people trying to be creative in all forms of creativity. There's nothing new under the sun.
no,
So substantively, is that a word?
substantially
Anyway, the substance of an orgasm trigger
is not
at
new.
its basic foundation level is gonna be the same. It's
Yes,
not gonna be. It's you can't say that you invented the concept of hypnotic orgasms,
no. In fact, the
but
point of the 5 point palm technique was that it wasn't just an orgasm trigger.
mhm.
I actually developed that. She may hear this. I don't care. I actually developed that with my wife, because she used to say, "I can't go from 0 to 60 just like that."
Mhm.
So, I did. I give her the trigger to start the arousal, and I just let it build and build and build, and then let the orgasm happen. Now,
Yep.
if we were to do that demo today, it would take her about 5 seconds to reach an orgasm.
Practice.
And
Yeah,
that's
so
our practice, ladies and gentlemen.
yes. Lee Allure does a sort of like conceptually similar with she calibrates like a radio dial.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, everyone's got their own, because that 0 to 60 thing is actually an issue for some people.
Because she will take that dial and she will turn it up and down and up and down. And oh yeah, she'll have all kinds of fun with it.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
been into that.
Oh, I see. I
Oh well,
have not, but I have not asked to be, so that is a completely different thing.
yeah,
Do you
years
have a
ago.
favorite kinky human trick that you've seen somebody else do? Is there something that you were like, oh, I wish I thought of that?
Oh, my favorite trick is actually another one that I came up with,
Hmm.
although other people have done it, and that is the chronic hysteresis.
The what now?
So I know you're a Doctor Who fan.
Yes.
Probably remember Meglos.
Yes.
And you remember there was that little short period where the Doctor and Romana were caught in a chronic hysteresis time loop, where
Okay.
they would go through these actions with absolutely no control. And then while the loop was resetting, they had a few seconds of think for yourself. So I created that. I was actually workshopping a memory play intensive to do it before a Nihu, back when I actually went to Nihu. And oh, that's right. This would have been the Nihu of 2019.
Anyway.
I I came up with that idea and I tested it with some people, and it was just hysterically funny. I loved it. And you go through the dialogue with them for the dialogue part, and then let them have, like, 30 seconds of free thought, and then boom, back to the beginning. And I played with that with some people, and that was just so much freaking fun. I had Mel. I don't know if you remember Mel. She was the one that she was the
Yeah, I
person.
remember Mel.
Okay, yeah, she would get she'd get splash damage from an instant induction.
Yes.
And she was absolutely priceless doing chronic hysteresis. She is such a just so good at
Yeah.
handling the weird stuff in her mind.
Yeah.
And it was so that's my all-time favorite. And I didn't
I
have to do that year because that was 2019, and I had other
mhm.
things going on in 2019.
Yes. So, do you want to talk about the other things or do you want to save that for another day?
I'm not sure it really merits talking about anymore. We'll just say that 2019, Charmed 2019 was fine. Shortly after that, in well February 26th, 2019, I had a stroke,
Mhm.
and that messed me up pretty hard for most of a year. Um, I mean, I went to Beguiled. I really don't remember hardly anything I did there,
Yeah.
except that I had to pass on the watch. So
Mhm.
I passed that on to Leo Lore. Um, but I honestly really had no business being at a con. um, my
I
words were
recall it was very important to you to be
it
able
was
to go and
it
just
was.
be there.
I really probably, in retrospect, shouldn't have. Uh, but I had to show people I was still alive, I guess,
Yeah.
and I wanted to see people. So, but I was really not in teaching form. I tried to teach anyway. Uh,
Yeah. I
yeah,
don't, that's what you do though, and I could totally understand reclaiming that part of your identity, even if it was a little too soon, was
yeah,
super important to you. And I
yeah.
don't think anybody begrudged you the need to
I
do
think
that. Yeah.
there
So,
were some feedback comments that basically said, "Dude, I don't know what's up with you, but take a break."
mm,
But that's okay.
it
That's okay.
is what it is. Because
Uh,
as we know, there's always going to be at least one person who turns in a comment that is,
re-entry into the community then, and I was in much better shape for 2020. Although
yes.
you'll notice I still didn't teach as many classes.
I mean, you had four,
Yeah.
which is a lot considering that the person who had the most had five.
Yes.
So, and that for people keeping score would be Hypnostory and Panda,
Yes.
who you will notice show up on schedules a lot. But for the last 6 minutes, I want to quick point out to the people who see this that Doctor Who is a treasure trove of inspiration to anybody looking for any sort of mind-altering game or trick to develop.
Amazing.
And,
And I mean,
you
we've
know,
used a lot of stuff from Doctor Who. I've used the Zero Room.
oh yeah, there's 60 years worth of television
Well, not
to
continuously, but that's okay.
Well, and we're going to get nerdy here for a second. In the wilderness years, which would be the time period between 1989 and 2005, there were still plenty of novelizations.
There were. And audio shows.
They did start the audios up eventually, not right away, but they did. There are even there's a couple filmed things featuring like Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy where they're clearly playing the Doctor, but it's not Doctor Who, for
Yeah.
example. But yeah, real quick, like my favorite other person Kinky Human trick is also Doctor Who related, and weirdly, because I don't really like orgasm play that much, also involves orgasms. Which is the thing that Leah Lore likes to do, where there's the modern series Creature of the Silence, where once they're out of your vision, you forget they exist. And the way the people in the show keep track is they make hash marks
Yep.
on their exposed skin. And she has this trick she does where she creates a scenario where her I'm gonna say victim because that's more fun has a mental or physical hypnotic orgasm every time they see a slash mark or a hash mark on their arm, and then they forget that the hash marks are there, but they still add one. Every time they have an orgasm, they add another mark.
Yes.
And I know at least to one person had like a period of 24 hours where rather than have that person remember immediately that there were or have the orgasm immediately, every time they saw their arm they would bank the orgasm, put another hash mark, and then at the end of the time period she had that person have all of them at the same time. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the kind of sadism that I can get behind.
Oh
But
yes. And Lee's brand is particularly on point.
yes,
Is
Lee
always
is not cruel and yet can be occasionally quite sadistic in a nice, happy way.
oh, absolutely.
Warm and fuzzy sadism, is that a thing?
Mm.
If it's not, it should be. All
It's
right, it's 11:58.
it
We have
is. Let's
successfully
go.
filled another 45 minutes. Next
Yeah.
week, 2021, the online charmed year. Maybe we can convince Goth Socks to come along and talk about putting together an entire online convention.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
Yeah, we have lots of things to talk about next week. You
Oh, that
wouldn't
was
think so, but we do.
yeah. Well, I mean, and that one was particularly interesting because it was pulled together. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And
Say
on
that.
that note, thanks for coming to our live stream. Thanks for chatting and asking us questions.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I love questions.
Yes, I've been Enscenic and he's been Wiseguy. And thank you, and we will see you all